Thank you. Approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
There's a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Second. Opposed, none? Motion passes. Approval of minutes of September the 19th, 2022.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend we approve the minutes as written.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, seeing none? Approval of minutes have been approved. Public input. Do we have any public input?
No, sir.
No? Okay. Showing none, we move on to discussion items. Letter A, Resolution 2253.
Yes, sir, we're seeking approval for Resolution 2223.
Excuse me a minute. Just for clarifications, we have Darlene Martinez, and she works with us in the finance, and your title,
General accountant?
General Accountant, and she's here because,
Eleanor, it's not here today.
yeah, okay. This is our board, and we're missing two
Thank
people,
you.
so. And Darlene has been with the city for 9
9 years.
years.
Going on 10.
Oh, okay, I thought you were,
No.
no. Okay. Well, thank you. And Darlene, I think, is a class of 74,
Yes.
West Las Vegas. My classmate.
Oh, well.
Yep. There you go. Go ahead, Mr. Charles.
The City of Las Vegas is in need of making a budget adjustment to 22-23 fiscal year budget. 2253, I'm sorry. To include a transfer of budget from code enforcement to city clerk in the amount of $71,587, a transfer of budget from code enforcement to community development in the amount of $43,494, an expense increase to 641 water replacement in the amount of $500,000, an expense increase to 643 water construction in the amount of $500,000, an expense increase to Fund 646 water GRT in the amount of $1 million, and an increase to Fund 647 water acquisition rights in the amount of $900,000. A decrease in revenue to Fund 217 special legislative appropriation in the amount of $228,928, and an increase to the expense in the amount of $119,437. And lastly, a revenue and expense increase to Fund 101, the library, in the amount of $200.
Thank you, Mr. Charles. Questions? No questions then? Now, what is this transfer from the city clerk's office to code enforcement of 71,528? What's that for?
The city clerk's office to code enforcement. 71,000.
Yeah, from code enforcement to city clerks.
Oh, from code enforcement to city clerk.
Code enforcement to city clerks.
Yes, so whenever we did the initial change, we transferred over Loretta Abreu. She was we would transfer all their salary into code enforcement, which shouldn't have been done. That portion should have gone to city clerks.
Okay.
And then now, I don't know if you're aware, but now Loretta is getting moved again, so we're gonna have to do
Another
It's
adjustment.
interim.
another adjustment.
Okay. And the other transfer from code enforcement to community development?
It was just an additional amount that shouldn't have been transferred in the first place. We were only gonna take those two individuals, and we took all of the individuals on there.
Oh, okay.
So it was just additional funds that shouldn't have been transferred.
Okay. And do you need I guess, Ms. Willows, we'll need a motion and a second on this for approval, if there's no other questions?
Mr. Montoya, and all these transfers, they're determined by your finance director, which is Mr., who makes these,
Well, Some of them
Does
come.
he sit with the city manager and you
No.
guys talk about what should be done, or is this just
Honestly,
internally? That makes
I'm not
that-
part of any of these conversations. They take place within HR and city manager's office, and then they just let us know when or who or what's gonna happen, and then we have to transfer the budget.
So it's normally a program director or somebody like that that makes, it falls on your desk and then you bring it to them, correct? To your council.
So these types of changes, they're
Uh-huh.
made within the human resources and the city manager's office. Therefore, once that takes place and the transfer actually happens, then I've just gotta move the budget, and that's what I've gotta bring to you all and to mayor and council.
Thank
So
you.
do you, go ahead. So do you have a letter from the, for example, the city manager's office that says, please do this?
Yes,
So you do have backup documentation
yes.
for each
And of
one of these?
course, Of course, personnel action form has to be done as well. And so that
Yeah,
comes to my
okay.
desk, yes.
Got it.
Which is one,
And that stays with HR.
try to understand how it gets initiated.
Right.
Yeah, because, these are big numbers. When you're talking about $1 million, that's a big number. To me, that's a big number.
Well, that came from
Um,
utilities, though.
Utilities,
From Marina.
Oh, yes, okay, we're talking apples and oranges, I thought we were talking staff.
well, this is all budget transfers, right? Yeah. This is
Right.
what we're discussing right now.
Right.
Right.
But-
That's what I'm talking about,
Correct.
requests, bars, right?
Okay.
They're budget adjustment requests.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I did see a letter from Maria Valverde about a lot of the utility stuff that's mentioned in here.
Correct.
But the two transfers, do you have a backup letter, for example, from the city manager that asks for that to be done?
That would be a personnel action form?
Oh, okay, because it dealt with a person moving around different
Correct.
departments. Okay,
Correct.
all right.
And so, that document's housed in human resources. That document comes from the human resource department to me, and then final signature of the city manager.
Okay.
Like your decrease for the special appropriation of 228. How did you determine that that's the amount that you needed to decrease? Was it a letter that came in from them asking you to do a decrease?
No, so if you look, I don't even know what page number it would be, honestly, but there's a small spreadsheet and it's showing FY '22 versus FY '23.
Uh-huh.
Let me just get to it right there. This spreadsheet here,
Okay.
if we look at the, and that number is coming from here. Take that one. I need to download it to look at it. Can you see it?
Almost.
Yeah, almost. And so you're inquiring about which figure?
The decrease for the legislative, 228, 228,000. 928.
And that is in revenue or?
It says a decrease, yes, a decreased revenue in Fund 217, special legislative appropriation in the amount of 228,000.
Okay, so look, if we look right here, arrow on there, sorry. Right there was the ending budget for FY '22 was 236,969. What was carried over was actually 408,393. So the difference between that is that 236.
Okay, so what you're doing is you're making an adjustment to reconcile to your end of year cash.
Yes, ma'am.
Back in June 30th, correct?
Yes.
Gotcha.
And so I was mentioning to Councilman Montoya earlier, whenever we were doing these budgets, we have to do it earlier than what the closing of the year is.
Correct.
So there was some encumbrances and things of that nature that were left on there that,
Right, it's
Yeah.
not going to be the exact number,
Right.
so I understand what you're doing here.
Yeah.
Because you're just giving simply a projection,
correct,
okay, as to what you think that number is going to be at June 30th.
right.
Okay, I just finished doing all of mine and I had questions on mine at my last finance committee. Right, Mr. Witters?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How is it that you came to this conclusion? I think I had a decrease or something, and he had a question on that, but you get it as close as you can.
Yes, ma'am.
How many did you have to adjust? Probably just all your
Well, the majority of them
accounts that
are,
have cash?
yeah, well, the majority of them are actually like these appropriations.
Okay,
Things happened right at year end,
right.
and expenses actually took place, got into June 30th, and so what was budgeted was not actually the figure that should come over, you know what I mean?
So how many funds do you think you had to do, like, to make adjustments to?
I worked on 217, about a handful,
About 5?
yeah, yeah.
So, one last question for you, Mr. Chos.
Yes,
So
sir.
on this appropriations for Fund 647, water acquisitions rights in the amount of 900,000,
Yes, sir.
where did that come from?
Those are cash reserves,
What's that?
cash reserves.
Oh,
And so, in the last finance committee, which I wasn't in on, I think Eleanor mentioned that these were cash reserves that we didn't know we had. We did know we had these, but these cash reserves. We budgeted as per
Yes, we
the
did.
utility director. But now with all the fires and everything that's going on, they're having to use reserves. And so that's what we're doing. We're just bringing up our budgets so that we can use those accounts in that cash.
and those are going to be reimbursable?
Yes, sir. Oh yeah, that's a lot of money to not, to not get reimbursed.
So does that mean that this is to accommodate the use of cash reserves that the city has until those monies are reimbursed from the fire?
That's correct.
Fire and flood accounts, okay.
Correct. And, I mean, I know you guys asked Eleanor what we've been reimbursed so far, and I reached out to the utilities director. They didn't really have a lot of information. What I provided you was only $300 and some odd thousand,
Mhm.
and that was just an estimate that was provided from FEMA up to this point.
And is the payment of interest to the city an allowable expense if the city has to use its money temporarily when you get your reimbursement from the fire and the flood?
If I'm not mistaken, it's gonna be dollar for dollar, but I'm not sure if there's gonna be
They're
interest.
not going to allow you to include interest,
I wouldn't mind.
okay. Because it might be significant.
Any other questions?
No, but I'll move that we approve this resolution.
2253?
2253, yes,
Is
sir.
there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, seeing none, motion passes. Moving on to letter B, resolution 2257.
Okay. In 2257, we're seeking approval to adopt a credit card acceptance and processing policy as per the Department of Finance and Administration Local Government Division. This is a new requirement for this year, and we have been working on it, had requested a couple of extensions just due to the fact that finance office was working with the utilities department to make sure that we include everything because of course, I mean, we don't have any credit cards. Over here, we don't use credit cards, but the acceptance is over at the utilities department, and so we just wanted to make sure to include everybody on that.
So is this your very first credit card then that you're going to be using, or you
No,
want to adopt this, or this is just an addition to
it's just an adoption of an actual policy.
a policy? Okay,
Right.
awesome.
So this policy will allow people that need to pay the city money will be able to use a credit card
Yes, and
to do that.
And they always have. I mean, you go to the utilities department, you can
Yeah.
get your credit card. It's just an adoption for DFA. The Department of Finance requested that we actually have a written policy in place, and we also have to attach this to the DFA website
Yeah,
as
okay.
part of our report.
Very good.
Any other questions?
No, but I would move that we approve the adoption of Resolution 2257.
And I accept.
Thank you. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, saying none. Motion passes. Move on to letter number C, wildlife expenses. Wildfire, I'm sorry. Expenses?
So
Reimbursements?
this is that email that I mentioned that we received back from FEMA. I thought, in talking with the utilities director, that they had a file showing any and every expenditures that have been made on behalf of the city. But apparently, it's being tracked through FEMA. And so this is the email response that we received from Reggie English in reference to an amount, and they're showing approximately $388,000 to date.
And who is Miss English?
She works for, I don't know, let me fix her department. DHSEN, part of FEMA.
So this is FEMA's estimate
Correct.
of what the city should get reimbursed from the fire and flood.
So far, yes, sir.
And how does it compare with any internal accounting that we've done as to what we think we should get from the city's standpoint, what should be?
I don't have a figure on that, and I reached out to the utilities director to see if they had
Yeah.
actual copies of invoices and things of that nature that they had purchased, because there's been a lot of things purchased. There's been chainsaws, there's been
Sure.
fuel, I mean, there's been a lot of, and then of course, time.
But that 300,000 does not include any salary reimbursement, does it? Yeah, okay.
It just reads water distribution, water treatment, gas,
Yeah.
City of Las Vegas PD. So how did they determine it would be 388?
Yeah, I do not know.
Yeah. Did Maria give them some type of documentation to come up with that number, or?
That I'm not sure of.
Well, Mayor and Council ran a solution through to have all directors keep accountability of the hours being worked to the fire, towards the fire, or towards floods. And we would request from FEMA that be reimbursed. And so it was basically up to each department to keep those hours. And then it would be reimbursed by the hour. I'm surprised that fire wasn't on here though. Fire department. Did they not turn in, I wonder if they didn't turn anything in?
Well, they were on the front line, so I'm sure that they have the hours. I just don't know if Span turned in anything on that.
I don't see anything on there either. And, I guess the 206K was for, 5 vendors associated with this that cut fire lines. And I'm assuming those are the fire lines, west of, Las Vegas and over at, reservoirs.
Correct.
Yeah. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, we'll move on. Letter D, September finance report.
So, for the month of September general fund, I apologize, this was very small. Both our revenues and our expenditures are in at 20%. However, we're showing a deficit, the general fund of $411,834.50 to date. I did have Eleanor put together a little graph. I don't know if you all were okay with this format, or if you want to see something different. I think it gives you a little bit of a better idea, instead of just looking at numbers like you mentioned.
So are you going to include these graphs with this report that you give to the council?
Yes, sir.
I think that's a good idea to start with. I have said that I'm going to try to meet with some of the councilors on a one-on-one and see what they would like to see, if this is adequate or not.
Sure.
But that's for the future, okay?
Sure.
But I really think you should present this report with the graphs at the Wednesday's meeting. And you might also, I don't know, Councilor Montoya, does that help you, the graphs? One of the things that can be commented on is if you go to page 2 of this report, the top set of graphs indicate where the revenue is coming from for the general fund. And it's real clear, if you look at that the gross receipts tax is the number 1 and number 2 sources of revenue. And I don't know if the councilors know what the difference between gross receipts tax 1.225 and the gross receipts tax 0.75 means. But you add those two together and you get by far the biggest source of funds for the city's budget is the gross receipts tax. Then the other category comes in, and then the gross receipts tax 0.25 are added in as the 4th largest. And then the graph just below it, you can see very clearly where the source of expenditures are. You can see that the police department by far uses the most of the revenue, and then the general services of the city comes in second, and then third is fire. And then all the rest are pretty small little guys down there. And to me, that would be fairly instructive. And you can see similar things if you look at the other categories, the other charts. The enterprise funds, you can see where, by the chart, you can see where those revenues come from and where the revenues are spent in the enterprise funds. So I think it's a good idea that you include the graphs in your report to the councilors.
They'll be included in the report.
I think we had them in there years past, and I don't know why they did it.
They disappeared, huh?
Yeah, but I think they had them on there years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But, different administrations ask for different things.
Right.
I think Mayor and Council already asked for the AP checklist,
Mhm.
and they want to go through that, so.
And last time, Dominic, we talked about the value in the city purchasing a reports writer software package. And there was some talk about that package. Is there anything been done with that yet at this point?
As a matter of fact, that budget, it's a budgeting module, and the company's called ClearGov, and they work primarily with Tyler
Mm-hmm.
from municipalities. And we did sit through a training, Darlene, Eleanor, and myself, and the functions of it are really pretty awesome. You know, and it's just a one-time setup fee, like $7,400. They'll request reports from us, then they just fully do it. And then, of course, they'll sit here for a week if they need to and give us training on how to use the reporting. They will prorate to the end of the year, but on an annual basis, it's about $36,000. And a setup fee of $7,400.
And have you decided whether you're going to go that route or not?
I have sent the emails to city manager. I haven't had we have not met, city manager and I have not.
Okay.
But he is aware of everything.
Have you spoke to other municipalities that do use it?
Actually, I have not, but the gentleman that I've been discussing this with, his name is Andrew Donahue, and he did send me Albuquerque's, send me Rio Rancho's, and he sent me another one out of Colorado, just to, how their system works. And, I mean, by the looks of it, fairly simple to use. And I think Eleanor mentioned that if you wanted to just see the finance budget, you could pull out that by itself, and you can do all these nice graphs and things of that nature. If you want to see the entire general fund, you can do so. If you want to just see the enterprise by itself, you can do that.
With the entries alone, you won't have to do them manually. Apparently,
Like these reports, you
Yeah.
won't have to create things.
Right.
You would just,
Yeah, I could,
the software would create what you need on a monthly
yes, I
basis,
could
correct?
put in the parameters of July 1st to September and it'll be generated. Yeah, I touch base with that gentleman almost weekly, just to, because they're very, very eager to.
Oh, I know.
Of course.
Yeah.
Like who would Santa Rosa use? Who does Ruidoso use? Who does Santa Fe use? You know, Espanola?
Right.
What type of software do they have in place?
Or if they do.
You know, I think so.
Yeah. Like even, well, Tyler can generate these types of reports. That system is more for just budgeting, budget-wise. It would really streamline a lot of the difficulties that we go through during the end of the year.
so what can this board do? Push for that or try and get that?
I would like to. I mean, I sent the request to city manager on several occasions, and I've had
Is it,
a few offers to have a training with them. It took us about 15.
does it
Well-
read, does it read what you already have with Tyler? It is through Tyler?
Yes.
Like the modules, like the software that we have with Tyler, and we have Tyler technology as well, it's just called Infinite Visions. And we have the HR module, we have a payroll module, we have the accounts payable module, your general ledger, your budgeting,
Right.
all that is inclusive, but I don't think that would be 40,000 a year. I think it's less,
Oh, is it?
yeah. I think
Well,
I was at
you-
25, but then I included another module. I think we went with iVisions, where you can just, now it's all remote, you know, you can be away from, you know, the
Right.
office.
36,000 is the full package.
Is the full package.
Right. There's
Yeah.
different modules as you mentioned. 36,000.
Because what is it that you pay for Tyler Technologies then? Is that, would that be included? No?
Tyler's up there. 200 something thousand?
Yeah.
200 something a year? Can you look that up? I can tell you right now.
Why would that be so high? I think way more or less have the same, that's a lot. I'm trying to get logged in, I could look it up here, but I'm having problems starting, or did Kenny leave? Because I'm trying to get logged in and it says that I need a keyword. Should I need a keyword? Did you log in, Mr. Quitters? No?
No, I just bring stuff on my computer.
It just says enter the network security key. And I normally can log in, but for some reason I can't.
So right here is everything.
Okay.
I've got the hosting of the city domain. Well, it's not sure. So we've got Tyler Content Manager and Co-Financial Annual Maintenance, the email and cloud storage for the entire city, the annual fees, and the court annual maintenance, the in-code document for annual maintenance. So there's a bunch of different things, items in here, that sums up to this $219,000 a year. But this is for every module of the city.
Right, that's what I was just gonna say. Find your cloud, okay.
So, let me
On
ask you this.
hosting.
Would they be willing to give us a presentation on that
Yes, sir.
to the finance committee? Come down here and give us a presentation of the program?
I don't think they'll come down here, but we could do it online.
But just the portion for your accounting software, there should be a section in here that's just for that, because this is for all kinds of other stuff. Ours looks like that probably too, but it's a different vendor. It's not through Tyler that we have all these maintenance agreements with them for
There's the one for finance, 38,000.
38, okay. That sounds like, right. But then this would be in addition to, correct? You're gonna say, you want 38, this is what you have, but then now to bring this budgeting piece in, this other module in, now you're gonna want another 38.
Correct.
Wow.
And like I said, that's the top level. We don't have to have every piece of the... Do you have that email from Andrew? Really?
But then again, it could streamline a lot of things for you too.
Yeah. Doing things manually is very difficult.
Leaves a lot of room for error.
It does.
Because we're human, we make mistakes on a daily basis, numbers, we
Right.
transpose.
And I'm sensing that at least two members of this board would highly encourage
Sure.
the city purchasing this additional software.
Moving on with the enterprise.
On that note, let's, I think what needs to happen there is that we need to have some kind of either online presentation of what it offers and what it costs, and have the city manager here also presently to understand the system and what we're trying to recommend. And then at that time, make that kind of a recommendation, if that's where the board wants to go.
Okay? I think that's a good idea.
So then, if you can, see if you can get that lined up and put on next meeting's agenda. Because this item has already been brought up 3 times, and it's got to get done or move forward or stick with the old system.
And that you don't have
We don't have those?
these. You would have something from the accounting software.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because these are
More simple.
generated by hand.
Yeah. It's something that probably everybody else uses, or most people use.
Mhm.
No. But in order for us to even to make a recommendation, we have to put it on the agenda, discuss it, have a presentation, and then make the recommendation, or not make the recommendation, whichever. And then let the ball where it falls. Okay? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Charles.
Okay, so the enterprise for the month of September, revenues are in at 20% and expenditures at 17%, showing us a surplus of $232,375.80. And once again, like Mr. Witter says, you can see it a little bit better with that graph. The recreation center, revenues in at 16% and expenditures at 13%. The deficit of $3,110. And I would like to remind you that there's a general fund transfer that added to those revenues. So look at it, it's really only $15,000 in revenue that we made this year. And lodger's tax, the revenues are in at 41% and our expenditures at 14%. So a surplus of $86,510. And you all requested to see the cannabis for the first quarter, I'm sorry. We received revenues of $25,649 and we have a GRT expense of $769, giving us a surplus of $24,880.
So on that, on the cannabis, that's the revenue from the first quarter, the 25,000?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is there any indication of whether or not that's going to hold so that we can like multiply that by 4 times and say that the annual revenue from the cannabis would be $100,000 that the city could look at, the councilors could look at?
Yes, sir. And so what we're doing for the next bar that we'll be bringing to Finance Committee, Engineer, and Council, we are budgeting $100,000.
Okay.
It was just that GFA had asked not to budget anything for the first quarter.
All right.
So on the recreation center, on the 3.2 that we got last year, and what we deducted, like 70,000, where is that on here?
The what?
The 3.2 that we got from the legislature, from governor's office, for the Rodriguez Park.
That's in a totally different fund. That's in Fund 217.
And where are we at now on the expenditures on that? Let's see. I'm just curious as to how much we've spent already, and because we're gonna have to be requesting some more funding for that, no, project.
So, we carried over 3.393 from last year into this year. Right now, we have $3,368,095 encumbered, and a remaining budget of $25,385. So we've got, it's all encumbered pretty much.
90%.
Oh, yeah.
That means you have an architect on board, you've got your construction company on board.
They're around and they're working on it.
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, they're having a, as we speak today, they're having a meeting on that for the consultants. And they should have started this week with that project.
And what's the fund code for that one?
217,
So it's under 217.
correct.
Special legislative appropriation. Okay.
And one last question, Mr. Chavez, on this fiscal year budget of 23. The 411 in deficit, $411,834.50. Is that like a little bit too high for this time of year?
No,
Are
not
we doing
necessarily.
too much spending, or why is that deficit so high?
Not necessarily. These GRTs are for the month of, what is it, of July. And so, I mean, it's still very early on. But if you look at last year, we were at 2.8 million. This year we're at 3 million. And if, and something else to consider, last year's expenditures were 2.8, with this year at being 3.15.
So last year at this time, were we in a deficit of 400,000, like, or 300,000?
Last year at this time, we had a surplus of
Right.
100,000.
So is this alarming to you?
This early on? No.
I just don't remember seeing, such a big number at this time of year, but
Well, we gotta take into consideration, what took place these last 3 months. We have spent extra in not only, supplies, but in time, personnel. Because, take a look at PD, for example, I mean,
And do you have reserves or anything that you would want to budget? I don't know, if I heard you mention earlier that you did have a reserve,
right.
but you wouldn't want to budget any of your reserves to make up for this deficit.
I wouldn't consider doing it
No?
this early,
Okay.
maybe mid-year. I mean, it's bad enough that I've already had to bring 3 bars to you. I heard the comment last meeting, I think with Mr. Franken, that said, isn't it alarming that we're having to do a bar this early in the year? To fix things, no, but to actually increase our budgets, yes. I mean,
Okay.
these things we're fixing items.
And you're acting finance director.
I have not been given that title, ma'am,
Yeah. Okay.
but,
But someone has to say, no,
right.
let's hold on. So
Right.
if you don't have that, then to me, it sounds like if just the purse is just open and we're
Oh,
gonna
okay.
continue to do this.
Right.
because finance people aren't very popular people. They say no to things and say, okay, I want to have a talk to my superior, and we're going to discuss this, and we're going to wait on this, this, and this until we see some revenue start to show up, whatever the case may be. But 400,000 is quite a bit to me, but if nobody's saying no, I mean, that's why I asked earlier, when all these changes are coming to these bars, how are they getting initiated, and who is actually putting some time and effort into them and saying, are they needed?
Right,
Are they necessary? You know what I'm saying?
right,
So
Well,
that
those-
this number decreases.
right.
Because I wouldn't want to be presenting something, if it was me, I would be skeptical about bringing that number forward, yeah.
Numbers are numbers, I can't do anything about that.
They don't
you know.
lie, they don't lie,
Exactly.
but you're controlling,
I've got a
somebody's gotta be
I've got a
controlling the
report.
purse,
I've got a
somebody's gotta be
report to
controlling
you.
it,
I've got to report
Pose
to you
it.
what the actual numbers are.
correct.
It'll come straight out of Tyler's system, and that's what I would not try and fix this for you, you know what I mean? We're not gonna
No.
play games like that. No, I'll give you exactly what we have.
But there's gotta
And-
be controls.
And yes, and I brought that to attention, so it's being looked at. However, like I mentioned, within this year, first quarter of this year, the city of Las Vegas, the entire community, everybody around has gone through a lot. And so expenditures are higher now than they were last year. We didn't have all the things that took place this year, last year.
So are you saying that in that 3.479 actual expenditures in the general fund so far, there is a lot of reimbursable expenses in there?
Yep, to say so, yes.
Do you have any idea how much that is?
No, sir, because we discussed that a moment ago whenever we went over those fire figures, and we don't have a lot from FEMA just yet.
Okay.
And I don't have the lists of all the overtime.
Okay, so you don't even have a feel for how much of that 3.4 will be reimbursed by FEMA and the feds with that 2.5 billion that was just legislated.
I do not.
But I have a feeling some of that will be reimbursed. Am I right?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay.
But it's not budgeted.
No. Yeah. I see what you're thinking.
We're spending too much.
That's why.
Who's gonna put the bricks?
Yeah, no, well, that's why I brought this up, because, that's a high number.
Absolutely.
Higher than normal, I think, or higher than what we've had in the past year. But yeah, last year was pandemic and so forth, and there was less spending going on. This year, we're having to fix things, and more spending is going on. But I just want to make sure that we keep in line, because, the next probably big item that we're going to be discussing and talking about is going to be employee salary increases. So, we got to keep in mind that we got to be in a better place in order to do that.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, and also in my mind, sir, is initially when I first saw some of the numbers, I thought that the city was sitting on a ton of cash. And I've been doing some analysis, and I'll show it to you when I get down further in it. I'm going to meet with Dominic and get a couple more parameters that I'm throwing in here. But it does appear that the city has a fair amount of cash that it could do something with.
In the banking?
And it sounds like right now, one of the big things it's doing is it's funding
Tyler.
the feds
Tyler.
on the fire and the flood. And some of that needs to get reimbursed, and I don't know
Yes.
how you,
No, they will. We are working towards that.
yeah. And it's probably, would you guess it's at least $750,000?
It very well could be, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, these folks get a lot.
Because I'm taking the 300 we saw in one and adding the two something, that there was another letter on salaries and contractors and that kind of stuff. And then just adding some more in, because I don't know that all the hours are in there from fire, police, et cetera. So,
So all that revenue that is
It's 3
owed, for
million,
example, is it going to come to this fund? Is it going to go into the general fund?
yes, from what he said, what Dominic said, but some of that is for prior year, so it's, only a little bit of that is this current fiscal year. I still think the
But
spending's
when you
high.
budgeted, when you put the budget together, everything should, all salaries and, benefits, et cetera, fixed costs should have been included in this budget. So to me, just to have
Yeah,
a deficit of 400 so soon, I don't,
Yeah.
it's hard to read, that's,
yes, that is tough to accept at this point.
right, because, and as the year goes by, what if this continues, or you think this is going to work out? You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Where would you get the funding to correct this?
right.
Just, would there be a plan?
We put the brakes on these folks,
Okay?
yeah. And it's been brought up several times,
Yeah.
in several department head meetings, that what took place last year cannot take place for another 3, 4, 5 years. Because the city did go ahead and did a mid-year bar last year that absorbed a lot of cash.
So evidently there is some spending that's going on that needs to stop.
Right.
And what the hardest part is to fix something like this is when the biggest place that you have is your salaries and benefits. That's 85% of your budget. You're going to be sending people home, and that's where you make people mad. Is when you have to let people go home. There's nowhere else that you can cut. So you nip it in the bud early so that you're not doing something like that. Because it's a domino effect. People that your council, take care of your council here, because they're the ones that will be attacked first
Right.
and foremost. You can't do this. Yes, you're going to have to do this.
Right. There's
So
$600,000.
hopefully next month, we're going to see this decrease.
I hope so.
I do too.
So, if you look at general services, at $600,000, that's still part of the bar from last year where they dipped into the cash surplus. And every ward got their portion, and they're fixing roads, they're fixing parks, they're doing this, they're doing that. And so that's where a lot of that's at right there as well.
But you can't spend what you don't have.
Correct.
So Dominic put the ring on it.
So, Mr. Chairman, I can see three possibilities here. You bring it up in the next council meeting. That's not my best recommendation to you. Maybe you sit with the city manager, and maybe we invite him to the next meeting, and invite Leah. And you sit with him and express concern privately, and we can talk to him next meeting. And another possibility is that when the mayor asks you, after you do this report, is there anything he needs to know? You tell him that. And I would defer to you as to which way is the better way to go, and there's maybe a fourth way in there somewhere that I haven't thought of. So,
All righty?
yes.
Any other question?
Do you want to go to the expenditures? Do you want to hit the expenditures now? There was, on the checks, I just saw someone that we paid. It was just the first page, okay? That there was a late fee for $785. Did you see that, Mr. Wooders, by any chance? Who was the vendor?
Page 1? This is the check report, right?
I'm not sure if it was a check report or the other report, the second, because you send that one and then there was another one. But I call it my budget balance
Keith
report, I
Brian
think,
Anderson.
whatever, right? I think,
There's a big fee of 745 Canadian.
it was, yeah, on the first page, I believe.
On the other report then?
I believe so.
Check report.
From the check report.
It was a big payment. It had to be because,
Which report is it? Is it the bank transaction report?
no,
or the
no,
check
it
report?
wasn't the bank
No,
transaction.
it's the check.
The check,
report.
yeah,
And then you just go, scroll down and it's.
the disbursement detail. Yes, that one.
Yeah.
It's page 4 of 78.
Did you look in it? Arlene and Tyler?
It was a payment to
There you go. There it
Keith
is.
Brian Anderson.
And we pay them for industrial barriers. You see that? And then there was a late fee for $745.
Right.
Who's in accounts payable?
Kimberly
here?
Jones.
Was that looked at, was that vendor called and asked for forgiveness instead of showing a $785 late fee, if your auditor captured that, so now you have an audit finding for paying late fees. Does anybody oversee
And that was Keith
accounts
who?
payable?
Brian Anderson, Keith Brian Anderson. And it's industrial barriers. I was wondering if that was like the Jersey barriers that were bought for getting prepared for the flood stuff.
Flood defense report.
What's that amount, 29?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
This doesn't show exactly what the late fee is for.
Did it show the invoice?
No.
No?
But we can look into that for you.
Right. Normally, if we had a situation like that, a phone call, pick up the phone, call them, see how you can say, ask for forgiveness. I'm sorry, we overlooked it. It got lost, the invoice got lost in the mail, something, rather than to just pay it. That's up close to $1,000. That's taxpayers' money. So we just want to be on top of things. I don't know if anybody overlooks your payments, like all your checks, once they're cut, you're paying, and does anybody overlook what's being paid? Question it at that time and say, call them, your accounts payable person. See if you can get it waived. Give me a one-time forgiveness here. Don't do it again. Something,
Yeah.
instead of paying $745.
Dinah, it sounds like you've been there.
That's what I do. You're not paid
Good for
something
you,
like that.
good for you.
So how does your shop run?
Our accounts payable runs checks every Thursday. So she normally has a stack of, she runs at least 50, 60 checks a week. And once she cuts them, then they go to my desk and I'll sign off on every check that's being released. So that I know that if I see something like that, I'm going to question it. I'm going to say,
No.
we're not paying that. We don't pay late fees. That's an audit finding. If we're doing something wrong, we need to make sure that we're diligent in keeping up with paying our bills too, right?
Well, isn't there a check and balance when you give out a purchase order or?
You have net
it's-
30 days.
And you go back and check within 25 days, check to see where it's at, see if it was purchased or if we're lacking an invoice or.
Well, and they're busy. Accounts
Yeah.
payable is a busy department. I came from accounts payable. I did accounts payable for 16 years. And so you're a busy person. There's just a lot that goes into it. I mean, you know, you spend a lot of time. The bills that come in, you have, there's normally like a stack here, you know, some are research, you make a file for research, okay, I need to look into this and what, I'm lacking something on this, that, you know. But at the end of the day, your supervisor, I look at every check that's being released. And if I would see something like that, I'd flag it. I'd send it back to my accounts payable with a note on there. You either void that check, you call them. Sure, they already
Yeah,
know.
but before
you know.
before that penalty comes about, isn't there a mechanism or throw a flag out there saying that it's due within 30 days?
Normal software packages, you would
Yes.
put that in, and it would
Aging-
create the
aging
list for you
report.
of checks to cut.
There's
On
an
our-
aging-
On our system, how do we deal with that?
Well, our accounts payable should be reconciling these monthly.
Do you have an
And-
aging report in your software?
Yes.
For the tuner for 30, 60, and 90 days?
Mhm. However, there are times that departments just do not get paperwork in.
It could be overlooked. Like I said, it could have been overlooked, and that's why I'm saying ask for forgiveness.
Right.
Because it could have been overlooked, it could have just, the envelope could have just, you know, didn't get opened when the bill came in. There's a lot of reasons, you
Right.
know. But I'm just saying,
You have-
make every attempt to get that taken off.
You have no
Because if
idea
it's,
how many messes I fix on a weekly basis,
Oh,
just
yeah.
due to the fact that departments don't turn in receipts. The turnover has been a pain in my neck recently because people leave and the ball just gets left on the floor and nobody around to pick it up.
Right.
And even if there is somebody around to pick it up, it'll bother. So then vendors start calling me and I have to go backwards 5, 6 steps to try and figure out what took place, how and why, and still fix it. And in those cases, I can get away. But if staff don't do their part, there's a lot of things that vendors are gonna say, no, sorry. You know, and this may have been one of those ones because it just so happened this is an area where there had that exact turnover I was speaking of. And
well, you're gonna do whatever you can
and I've
so that you don't get the finding for it.
Right.
You don't want the auditor to choose that,
Right.
right?
mhm,
Because if they do that, then they start to look more into your accounts payable.
right.
You know, they're not doing this, what else isn't she doing or he doing?
Well,
right.
they're looking, let me tell you. They are looking. But I will look into this one and get back to you on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I have several questions,
Go ahead, Mr. Preacher.
if I may.
Go ahead.
And some of these are because I'm the rookie here. I've seen on several accounts payable, it talks about the 3 senior centers. What are the 3 senior centers that the city manages? The one here.
Here, San Miguel and Pecos.
Oh, so there's one in Pecos that the city manages. Okay. My next question is
And that's jointly with the county.
joint with the county. Oh, okay. My next question is page 14. It's Trilogy Medical Waste. What medical waste does the city have?
I believe that has to do with the fire department.
The fire department?
I believe so. That BMT.
Page 14. Trilogy,
Yep, that's
and it's only $97, but it talks about medical waste, biomedical waste.
Those are the needles.
And that's account code 101, okay.
Yeah, that's fire department.
Fire department has medical waste, okay. My next question is, page 22. It's Axon Enterprises. And the thing that I was struggling with is that, why is that account 220? I may have an old account listing, and it says it's account 220, and what I have on my listing for account 220 is,
These are body cameras that were purchased last year, and it's a 5-year contract. And the discussion with the previous finance director and previous police chief led to believe that the city was going to foot the bill for the rest of this contract. And so to keep it separated from PD, it got put into this capital account.
so who made the decision to take it out of the capital account?
The previous finance director and previous police chief had a discussion, and so the funds came out of this beginning last year.
Okay. So that's just a little weird to me, and I would wonder if there's the proper control on some of this stuff. I know you don't have control over that.
I am, well, we have a 5-year contract, and it's separated out to keep this equipment actually set off to the side by itself.
So because it was capital depreciable fixed assets,
Yeah.
it's eligible to come out of that account?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
And this was, body cameras were made mandatory last year, is that correct? Or?
That's what I remember,
Yes, sir.
but I was only casually involved in. My next question, and I bring this up because your name's on it, Dominic.
Sure.
It's page 28. It's Southwest Capital, and it's a payroll transfer for Dominic Chavez. What is that?
That's what she got for you.
Sadly,
Page 28.
yeah. Sadly, my timesheet didn't get pulled
Process.
into payroll, so the entire city got paid except for me. So they had to run a separate check for me.
Okay. And if somebody wanted to, who generated that
Roberta,
AP? Pardon?
Roberta,
She's your payroll clerk?
that's correct.
Okay. How often is our employees paid here?
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks? So you're on a every 2-week cycle? Okay.
So how did she do your payroll then? She had to do a supplemental and send
No, she just-
taxes and
She just had to do a new packet.
write on whole new payroll. Is there a second set of eyes? Somebody that signs off on what she does as well? Do I go
So-
back to internal controls?
So yes,
To
yes,
people?
yes. And oddly enough, that it was me, and I
Uh-huh.
left out my own name. I review the payroll register before
Before she runs.
she runs the checks, correct? And
You missed it.
You missed it.
You missed your own name. You didn't notice.
at least it was mine and not anybody else's.
And was that partially due to the increase as interim or just?
And
No. Oh, okay.
and how did you find out that you didn't get paid?
Yeah, you didn't get it.
No
Because I-
direct deposit?
Because I kept on asking him, we get an email, well, you can opt into getting an email whenever your payroll's run.
Uh-huh.
And he'll email your check stub instead of having a printed copy.
Right.
And so I inquired and inquired and inquired, and said, well, after the fifth question of asking her, I said, well, is payroll done or not? And she said, well, yeah. I said, well, I didn't get an email stating that I got paid. And so she looked into it and she said, you don't have a timesheet. So my timesheet is still in the city manager's office, and I overlooked it whenever I knew what I was supposed to do.
Oh, my gosh.
But yeah, there's a lot of things during payroll that, because of our revolving door, we have constant payouts, we have pay changes, increases, decreases, whatever, and so whenever you're doing payroll, you gotta calculate regular hours versus overtime hours for para purposes and things of that nature, and
Do you,
just so happened that I skipped myself.
do you have a payroll meeting? Do you have a committee that sits before? I know this sounds crazy, but we do, because of all these things that you're saying. So every other Tuesday, we have a meeting, 1:30. HR, 2 people in HR, a payroll person, myself, superintendent. We're trying to solve all these little issues, all your overtimes, all your changes, people transferring departments, pay docs, people that abandon jobs, are we paying them, how much do they owe? That takes about an hour, maybe sometimes 2 hours, and we do all that every other week. It's time consuming, but you're trying to solve all these issues that you don't want to occur, because then you're having to submit all your taxes to the IRS, and there's room for error when you're having to run another supplemental. I call it a supplemental if we leave somebody out. But, and it takes a lot of time. Payroll just takes a lot. It does. I don't like, do I like going to all these meetings? No, I don't, but we're trying to help.
We don't have a committee per se, but HR and payroll work very close together, and all of the documentation is still across my desk.
So way to go. Other question?
I got a few more.
Okay.
Page 37, there's a City of Las Vegas Rec Center, and it's some water projects payouts. And it talks about fund codes 998 and 999. What are those, Dominic?
Those are the bank codes. The 998 is the general fund, and the 999 is the enterprise.
And what do they represent? That, because
Want to explain that again?
37,
Page 37?
page 37.
Well, when they first went on Tyler, they did bank codes. And the general fund, it's called like a pool cash, and their number is the 998. And enterprise, the same thing. All enterprise funds go into that, but it's 999. So it's just a bank code.
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense to me that, well, what are you trying to do with this check?
Which check?
It's page 37, it's City of Las Vegas Rec Center. Let's see if I wrote it down right.
It's an AP transfer.
City of Las Vegas Water Projects. And it's account code 998, which if it's enterprise, it sounds like it should be 999.
Right.
But how does project 998, that, it doesn't have a budget, it doesn't have anything, right?
No, it's just a bank code.
Okay. So,
What's going on this check is we're transferring, like the GRTs, when it comes in, it all comes into general fund. So then what we're doing here is we're transferring the enterprise share
okay,
to
so
enterprise.
this is a funds transfer
Yes,
from,
from general fund to the enterprise GRT. No, actually to the 646.
okay,
That's what it is.
okay. All right. And you probably don't actually write a check, do you?
For those ones we do.
You just do an electronic transfer, don't you?
No,
You actually write a check? Okay. All right.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that.
We're getting there, we're trying to get there.
I finally got all the online banking done, because, I mean,
Dominic, you might as well take the job.
Yeah.
You're starting to run this department like you.
You should, yeah.
Okay, you look a lot more calm than the last times we met with you. You know, you're getting there, you're getting there. Might as well.
Last question, sir.
Last question is, how many bank accounts does the city of Las Vegas have?
A bunch. I remember asking that one.
And
Too many,
why?
though.
Why
Too
so
many,
many?
Too many.
Yeah.
so we have 3 with Wells Fargo, we have 4 Community First, and we have 11 with Southwest Capital.
Let's see. I asked, and how long does it?
4 is 8 plus 11 is
And how-
19 bank accounts?
Yes, and how long does it take Dominic to reconcile them?
Darlene
Oh,
and
Darlene.
Eleanor do it within 2 weeks.
See, I couldn't imagine. I
Yeah.
couldn't imagine. Let's see.
The general fund and.
We have 4.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
our budget's about as big as
So-
yours too.
And Dinah, how many do you have?
4.
Yeah, that's what, that seems better. Okay.
So on that note, so why so many? And
I don't have an answer for that, Councilman. As a matter of fact, I've closed 3 in Southwest Capital because they're necessary.
Right.
And that RFP for renewal that was supposed to have been done last month, that was expired, but
We never have an RFP.
or,
Are you talking about the CD?
yeah, the CDs that were expired. We only had one bank that had them all.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. And was that renewed?
It's on a recurring.
Oh, okay. So we didn't try and get a better interest rate or anything like that?
We looked.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Can
that
we
they're
have
horrible.
those?
They're horrible.
Yeah.
They have to be horrible. I know they are. But maybe with your auditor, maybe you can ask advice of your auditor to reconcile some of them, downsize, just, to me, that's like an overkill on bank accounts, but
It is.
Well, the previous people that were here, they wanted them
Right.
separated out.
I know, I mean, you guys are just doing whatever was in
Yeah.
place. I understand that, but, sometimes when you get a new leader in there, that's when you can make changes, and you, boom,
I've tried.
close them out, close this one out, close that one. And, get the recommendation from your auditors, because then now you have more teeth when you come to ask.
Right.
Look, they are asking, why do we have so many? Because remember, you have to keep track of all of them. There's just so much room for error,
And one other recommendation I would make is that if you can downsize those, then you will have a smaller handful, 4, 5. That's just a round number, and I don't know exactly all your situation. But you would have sizable amounts in those accounts, and you could sit down with the bank and maybe spread them around several banks. Or concentrate them on one, I recommend spread, and sit down with the bank and say, hey, we're going to be putting this kind of money into your bank, and I need a better CD interest rate. Give it to me, or I'm going somewhere else. I mean, be in their face. I'm okay with that. That's me too, by the way. You know that.
And we have had some discussions. As a matter of fact, we just had a recent issue where we were getting charged a daily fee for an account that went into the red. We have a small account that is never touched, and a check got cut out of this fund, which threw that account into the red. I contacted the bank and I said, you know what, we've got $20 million in here, is this going to be an issue until we get that fixed? No issue. Of course, the fee kept on going there, so we got that waived. Any wire transfers we do, we don't pay fees on.
Good.
So I tried to work with them, and they work very well with us. And of course, Wells Fargo.
And who's they? Is this Southwest Capital?
Southwest Capital and Community First.
Okay,
You deal with community first too?
Yes.
my experience in the private world is Southwest Capital is awful. But
They're
that's a
very
different environment.
friendly though, so.
And you probably, the city's probably been with them for, kind of like forever? Yeah,
Probably since 1969.
really, okay.
That's who we've been.
All right.
Just
Enough said, sir.
Orca.
Anything else, Mr. Chavez?
No, sir.
So then, our next meeting will be on October the 17th, 2022, 2 p.m., same place.
How about,
Is that right?
how about November 14th?
Yeah, that would work better.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
You're reading what it says there, but it's really what, November 14th?
Yeah, well, you approved the agenda, right?
I know,
So,
and I forgot to bring it up then. Yeah.
all right.
Oh, did you guys not get an updated one? I'm sorry.
No, we got October 17th.
Eleanor did send a change.
Oh, she did?
Yes.
Yeah, she
Sorry
did.
about that.
So it's November
It's
14th?
November
Yeah.
14th, correct.
She apologized. She sent an update. So it will be November the 17th. That falls on a Tuesday?
Is it November 14th, if I'm not mistaken?
November 14th.
14th.
Yes, sir, November 14th.
Monday, November the 14th?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
And I'd ask that you invite our city manager
Yes, sir.
as per request of the board. Yes, sir.
I move we adjourn.
I
Go ahead,
I second it.
Okay, and that's what time? 3:23
Yes, sir.
p.m. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, none. Motion carries, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
This November 14th, already.
Dinah, do you recall?
Thank you, Dominic.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Do you recall speaking with me weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, whenever I was to Highlands?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I thought you forgot who I was.
Nope.
Who could forget Miss Diamond?
Everybody knows you, Dinah.
No.